Hello, hello, hello. Marietta back with another video. Tonight we're going to speak about um 5 challenges that homeless women face. The challenges that homeless women face being out on the street alone. So we're going to talk about that tonight. I know homelessness can come in all ages, all genders, and it doesn't matter which race it is. You can find yourself out there homeless. Homelessness is different. It looks different for a lot of people. It looks different for everyone that's out on the street. There's a lot of people out there for different reasons. A lot of people feel like the stigma for homelessness is a person that is on drugs, a person that is financially unstable, to the point where maybe they never worked, or maybe they're irresponsible, maybe they're coming out of a bad divorce, a bad marriage. They end up homeless for a lot of reasons. But the number one reason why most people thought that people were always homeless, from what I understood, was because they were on drugs. They were on drugs and irresponsible. But that's not the case for today. Today, in 2026, that is not always the case. That is not the case. There's a lot of people that are homeless right now due to no fault of their own. But we want to talk about the situations of what it looks like for homeless women. Homeless women. When I think about the fact of how many homeless women I met during the cycle of being out on the street, being able to walk the street every single day, encountering a lot of homeless women. When I was going through my homeless stage, I met a lot of women that were out on the street that actually, some could function, some did not know how to function. Some had been beaten, battered, and bruised. Some of them were running from abusive relationships. Some of them were truly on drugs, but some of them just refused to return back to a place where they were unwanted, leaving family speaking down to them, family treating them like garbage because they may have lost a job, or maybe they have come up with children, or maybe they didn't have enough money to pay their part of the rent inside the home, so they were put out of the home. So when I think about women being out on the street, it's the most dangerous thing in the world that I can think of right now, because of the way the world is today and all the things that are going on in the world today. So let's start with number one. The number one thing that I came up with was, when I got the chance to see this situation, it really broke my heart to see women that actually had children. Child care for homeless women is almost impossible to get. It can be done, and some of them do get child care, but what I'm trying to say is, finding someone to take care of your kids while you're in a homeless situation is a hard thing to do. Why? Because you don't even know where you're going to lay your head from day to day. You don't know what town, what city you might have to be in, providing you have transportation. And it's even worse if you don't have transportation and you have to figure out how you're going to get your kids from one place to another, who's going to pick them up, how they're going to get there. You trying to work, you trying to hold down a job, but yet you cannot hold down a job due to the fact that child care for homelessness women is very hard to obtain. You may try to take your children to family and friends, and you don't understand that your family and friends may have their own responsibilities, may have their own obligations. They may be even fed up with raising kids to the point where they don't even want to take on that responsibility. And it is a big responsibility when you start leaving your children with family and friends that, it was different when you would just come to visit and you would go home. Now you want to leave them here with me, and then I know you're in a homeless state. I don't know if you were able to come back and get them. Sometimes family and friends will not take them for the fear of knowing that you may not return back to get them. There's been some cases that I do know of, back in the day, that I've heard of, where people would take their kids to your house and they would leave them there. They would just leave them there. Remember when people used to open your door and they find the baby in the basket? Find people knock on the door, because the people felt as though they could trust you, so they would leave their kids on your doorstep, and they may come back to get them, they may not, but they would leave them with you because they felt as though that you would take care of them. Family may not want to be bothered with it. Friends may not want to be bothered with it. So now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So you can't go to work and you can't begin to fend for yourself because you don't have nobody to take care of these kids. And being unsheltered with young kids, it is totally hard to maintain a job of any kind. Why? Because there's not a lot of places where you could take your kids and go to work, where you could take your children and go to work, or you got to worry about feeding them. And children are very demanding when it comes down to their child care and their proper feeding schedules and their hygiene and things of that nature that you got to provide for. They may, depending on how old they are, you have to feed them. You have to, no matter how old they are, you got to feed them. But then what if they're in diapers? What if they're in a place where they may be sickly? How are you going to deal with taking these children to work? How are you going to be able to work knowing that your child is sick? How are you going to leave your child with friends and family knowing that you may have to take that child to the doctor at any given time, and they may not know how to operate in the sickness of what that child has, or they may not understand the fact that you may not have a phone, or your phone, you may not answer the call when they call you. I mean, there's a lot of things that play into this, and for one, they've had a chance to watch you with your children before you became homeless, so most of the time your friends and your family already know how responsible or how irresponsible you would be in this type of a situation. So being homeless and having to deal with trying to figure out childcare, that's another big thing. That's huge, because I mean, that's just pure stress, that's pure anxiety, depression. Everything can fall down on you in that situation, because your first priority is to these children, to figure out where these children are going to be if you go to work. Are you going to be able to hold down a job? Are you going to be able to press through and be able to come back and pick your children up? And then where are you going to sleep? Even if you have a car, where are you going to park this car with these children in it? So it's a lot to think about when you're thinking about children, home care, and homelessness all at the same time. So most of the time, it's the women that have these children that are out here. I see it a lot on the internet right to this day. Social media has a lot of it, where the mothers are in the cars with the children. They can't go to work. They can't obtain the right income. They don't have an ID. They don't have no way to get because you got to have an address to get an ID. And so, I mean, from my understanding, if y'all know something different, type it down in the comments how you can help these homeless mothers in these situations of what I'm about ready to mention. And as you can help them, type what you know down in the comments, because this is just me giving my opinion, and I would love to hear opinions of others that we may be able to help someone, because that's what we do over here. We uplift, motivate, and inspire in any situation. We try to give the best advice that we know how from what we have been through, but what you have been through may be the key to somebody else's breakthrough. Amen. Unsheltered with young children, it's very hard to maintain a job. So that's the number one thing, is how you're going to find childcare. And then I got to thinking about it. How many mothers did I see walking the street, or that you may know of, that are pregnant and homeless? Pregnant is homeless. That's got to be another whole ball game. Because, the shelters will take you in. Shelters do help to a certain extent, but a lot of people have told me that they felt as though the shelters did not help, because the shelter only is there to keep you homeless, because they'll put you out at certain times of the morning. Y'all type in the comments if you've ever slept in a shelter. Is that what they do? Type it in the comments if you know how the shelters actually work, and how why people got to leave the shelters at a certain hour, a certain time. Why do they get put out of the shelter in the morning? Why can't they just stay there all day until they get themselves up on their feet? So talk about that. Let's see how many people can help somebody that feels as though that a shelter is an extra place to live right now, what we're going through in the world today. Because now we do have a lot of mothers that unfortunately are ending up homeless in the street, and some of them are pregnant. Being pregnant in the street is one of the worst things in the world, due to the fact that, first of all, you're not going to be able to make your well visits. Most pregnant women that are out in the street, they know they need well visits, but they cannot make their well visits because of the fact that they may not have a ride to get through and back and forth to the doctor's office. They may not even feel like going to the doctor's office because of the fact they're afraid that child welfare may be called in the midst of them showing up pregnant and homeless. And so then they don't get the nutrition that they deserve, because you're not cooking right, you're not eating right, you're not resting, you're not taking your vitamins. I mean, most of the time when they're homeless like this, you're lucky if you can even have a bag, let alone if somebody steal your bag with your vitamins and things in it. So therefore, you're out here homeless, and you're pregnant, and you're going through, and then you're out in the elements, and that's not good for a pregnant woman to be sleeping on the sidewalk or on the concrete, or just sleeping setting up. Your body needs to be able to stretch out at some point to be able to rest, because of the fact that you're carrying this extra life inside of you. There's a nutritional system that needs to go on. Healthcare needs to be met, and transportation could be rough to get back and forth, and they don't really want to trust nobody else, because I mean, you think about it. How come there are so many homeless pregnant women that are out there in the street? I mean, you got to think about young women, especially out here in the street, going through different situations, and they may even came to the street and was not pregnant before they got in the street, but because they had to sacrifice themselves, maybe sacrifice their body in order to get some food, in order to get some money, in order to have a place, even if it's only for one night, and they slept with the wrong person, and all of a sudden they became pregnant. So now they're pregnant and homeless, and then they've gone through some things in the midst of this pregnancy to the point where, you know, they gotta, most of the time, won't get to a doctor until they have an emergency, won't get to a doctor until they find themselves having pain, or maybe they realize that, you know, they can't keep the baby, or they can't stay out there like that until they done had enough, and then they'll try to seek shelter somewhere else, even if it costs them the pregnancy. So I found that to be true, because I did know one lady when I was out there in Delaware, when I used to be in the street praying for the homeless all the time, because we used to do a lot of street revivals, and that's another thing, you don't see a lot of street revivals going on no more. It seemed like after 2020 the street revivals was over with, but a lot of times that would be the time that people would be going through when they would walk up into that tent revival, give their life to Christ, and you could pray for them, and then the churches would help them and help get them off the street, help get them to the doctor, help get them their prenatal care and things of that nature, and help them get a roof over their head and get a bed. And then they would even, some of the mothers would even help them with the babies as they begin to birth these babies into this world, you know, even though they were going through some things. And before you know it, that person, the particular young lady I'm talking about, she cleaned her life up, her and her baby joined the church, and they did good. That's not everybody's story, but that is a good story, and that was a good outcome. So that's number 2 of why a lot of women end up homeless in the street. And the next one I came up with was because they have gone through some things with a partner, a significant other, or somebody they thought that loved them, where they may have went through a situation where it was unbearable for them to stay in the home, whether it be drugs or whether it be they in there, you know, going through violence or domestic violence or things of that nature. You got to realize a lot of times people go through some things that may not be healthy for them. The situation may not be healthy for them. So they have to get out of that situation and get out of it as fast as they possibly can. And love don't have nothing to do with what you go through when you're in pain, or you're crying, or you're feeling down, or you're feeling not loved, and you're feeling not valued. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes some women can't take that, so they'll end up in the street. You know, my thing was, when I left my last husband, it was all of that. It was the same thing, you know, the cheating, the lying, the stealing from your own house, the disrespect, you know, and it made an unbearable situation. You know, once the situation becomes unbearable for you to be in, and y'all realize that the relationship is irretrievably broken, one of you needs to leave. One of you needs to leave. See, and I didn't want that statistic thing of saying that I took everything from a man and this, that, and other thing, because see, one thing I knew, I didn't want that situation. I didn't want the house. I didn't want the car. I didn't want nothing left from that situation. I wanted to be able to go and start all over, start fresh, and begin to mend my life. And that's exactly what God allowed me to do. Because see, a lot of times we'll sit there and we'll say, a man is supposed to lead, and he is supposed to lead. I'm a firm believer that he is supposed to lead, as long as he's leading you in the path of righteousness. You don't have to follow him if he's going to lead you to the crack house. You don't have to follow him if he's going to lead you down a path of destruction, or if he's hurting you or putting your hand on you and things of that nature. That kind of stuff we do not deal with in the body of Christ, because that's not God's will for our life. I mean, I am a firm believer. I'm one that stands on the constitution of marriage, and I believe that a person should be married. I really believe that marriage is not for everybody. And so if it's not for you, it's just not for you, because I mean, everybody would not end up married, especially in this season we got going on here now. So when I think about how many women are homeless now, and I see a lot of homeless women in the run of a day, I've seen more homeless women in this last year than I've seen ever in my whole entire life. I'm seeing a lot of homeless women that are actually now on the street. And I mean, you can look at them and tell they have not been homeless long. And you know why? Because they've still got their hair done. They still got that makeup done. They still have not gone through enough. They're still walking around with makeup bags and realizing that they're not ready to turn loose of this materialistic type of living. And they're still trying to hunt up decent clothes and things of that nature, so they still have money to buy these things, because a lot of the homeless women that I have encountered that I actually been out there on the street for a while, they don't have money for clothes, they don't have money for nothing. They actually are the new age modern women that are out there on the street now, the ones that are homeless now, sleeping in brand new Toyotas and brand new Toyota Siennas or whatever, and sleeping in these brand new Escalades and these brand new BMWs, but they sleeping in these high-end vehicles. That's not your typical homeless. That's that new age homelessness that's going on right now. Yeah, that new age homelessness. But I'm speaking of the old age homelessness where people were really truly in need and really truly needed help. Because if you pull up in a brand spanking new BMW and you got your seat stretched back and you sleeping in that vehicle and you tell people you homeless, they're not going to be too apt to help you, because the first thing they're going to say is, how come who's doing your hair? Her hair is done, nails are slayed, she's still dressed to kill, lips are painted, makeup flawless, but you sleeping in a BMW, but you homeless. You see what I'm saying? People are not going to be too apt to give you their money or to help you out of that situation, because that means they would have to put the next step up from that is what? The penthouse. I mean, that means you were living a good, glamorous life before this happened, and maybe that was the problem. You was living above your means. So then we go down a little further and we start talking about the hygiene factor. Now, when you're out here and you're out here in these streets, hygiene is a big thing for women. We all know that women have cycles. That may be a little TMI, but women have cycles, and therefore they need hygiene, places to wash up, places to bath. I know there's a lot right now. They have where you can go to the gym to get your bath, and that wasn't always. Now that people are signing themselves in Planet Fitness and things of that nature, where they can get showers, they can get cleaned up, and that wasn't always. There wasn't always a place where you could go to a gym and get a bath. So therefore, a lot of times back in the day, they would hit like a gas station and would just wash up. Maybe a corner store where they have a bathroom, and in 4 or 5 minutes while they're in that bathroom, they could wash up. Or if they were had a friend of any kind where they could go visit, maybe for an hour or so during the day, they maybe could use their bathroom just to get a bath and then go back to the street. But when it comes down to the products themselves, the feminine products that the woman needs when she's out there in the street, those things are getting very expensive. Even right to this day, they're very expensive, and they are getting harder to obtain. I remember back in the day, I had participated in a drive that we did where we went to the different yard sales and we collected purses from different yard sales. Some of them were name brands, some of them were just purses that women were done with, and we shook them out, cleaned them out, dusted them out, and we filled them pocketbooks with feminine products. I filled them with feminine products, and then I passed them out on the street. And because of the fact that they were filled with feminine products, I mean stuff like tampons and pads and deodorant and toothpaste, toothbrush, lotion, socks. What else was in there? We would stuff a lot of things that we got from the dollar store when things was really, truly $1 at the dollar store. You know, you could go buy these things and put a mouthwash, things of that nature, gum, maybe give them some hard candy like mints and things like that. But we put together a whole bag, maybe even a one-size-fit-all nightshirt where they could put that on, you know, for a change, but just to make the women feel good about themselves. But they would have feminine hygiene products in these different bags where they can use while they're out there on the street. So that's the problem that most women are having right now that are homeless on the street. The ones that have been homeless for a while, the ones that you see pushing the shopping carts, the ones that, not the ones driving the BMWs or ones that driving the Toyotas that are sleeping in the cars, but the ones that are actually on the street. These are the ones that actually need this, the ones that are sleeping under the bridge. They be needing feminine products. The products actually do cost a lot of money, and it's hard for them to get due to the fact that because of their homelessness, they don't have money, they don't have a job, so therefore it's hard for them to get these type of things. So I mean, we done ran down the list of a lot of things, a lot of reasons why they end up homeless. We got childcare, that's number one. Pregnancy, that was number two. Being pregnant on the street. Number three, homeless women, you know, with their violent past, they may suffer domestic violence. We got number four, access to hygiene products. And then number five, they have no money. I mean, you cannot have no money if you can't go to work. You can't have no money if you can't get a job and be able to hold down a job, not just because you don't have kids, but because you just don't have no way to get to it. You don't have no residence. You don't have no way to hold your things. You can't keep things because of the fact that you have maybe a backpack of your personal items in that backpack. You have to watch them all night long because so many people lose their things just like that. When they wake up in their backpack and have been stolen by another homeless person. Because when you're out here, you got to really protect yourself, and you're out here in the elements, and it's really hard for you to be able to focus and function out here when you're out here by yourself. So I really believe that homeless women face a lot of challenges when they're out here on the street, and they go through a lot. And to be, I mean, not saying that men don't, not saying that it's not equally as hard for anybody else. I mean, you got to realize we think about the pay equality or sexism or domestic violence or being unsheltered. Women face all of this. They face a lot of this when they're out there. So I just wanted to speak a little bit about the homelessness and what women go through when they be in the homeless situation, and to give a little insight about how hard it is for women to be homeless on the street and how bad it looks today, especially when you got young girls out there on the street today that are afraid of the dark. You got some people that actually are afraid of the dark, so when it gets dark, they can't sleep, they can't rest, they're scared, and it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight and give y'all some ideas of what it looks like for homeless women to be out there on the street and how hard it is for them to be able to function in the situations in which they're in, when they got children, when they have no money, when they need health care and can't seek health care, when they're pregnant and they don't have access to hygiene, feminine products. It just gets really worse. And we're going to see a lot more of that, unfortunately, today. And today we're seeing a lot more of homeless women on the street right now. So that's my take on that. So I pray that it will help somebody. I pray that, we'll do what we can as we see these situations unfold. If you meet somebody who is homeless in this situation, if you can help them, help them. If you can't help them, don't hurt them. That's my motto. All right, I love y'all. Y'all have a blessed night. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. If you've not turned your notification bells on, please turn your notification bells on so you'll be notified when I drop my next video. Y'all be blessed.